Welcome to the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast, where timeless biblical truths meet modern leadership. We are thrilled to have you join us on this journey of exploring how biblical principles can guide us in leading with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. Whether you're leading in the church, your workplace, or your community, this podcast is designed to inspire, challenge, and equip you for the road ahead. Let's dive into today's conversation and discover how Scripture shapes the way we lead.
Welcome back to Biblical Perspectives for Leadership. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into, one of the most compelling and frankly pretty haunting stories from ancient leadership. We're talking about the tragic tale of King Saul and his fateful encounter with the medium at Endor. Now, this isn't just some old story. It's really a profound journey into the mind of a leader in crisis. We'll be exploring the heavy consequences of, bypassing established counsel and maybe even more critically, abandoning one's core principles under immense pressure. We're pulling from this rich historical account to draw out practical, maybe even surprising lessons on leadership and decision-making that really resonate in our everyday lives. So as we unravel this narrative, I want you to consider this central question. What kind of nuanced, perhaps counterintuitive insights can today's leaders uncover from King Saul's fear, his desperate turn to forbidden counsel, and the high cost of compromising convictions when everything feels like it's falling apart?
It really is an incredibly powerful story for understanding the pressures leaders face, isn't it? And it's laid out so vividly in the material we have. You have to picture the scene. King Saul, he's Israel's first king, and he finds himself encamped at Gilboa. He's facing an impending and pretty formidable attack from the Philistine army. This is no ordinary skirmish. It's a truly critical moment for his reign, for his people.
Yeah, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Exactly. And adding to his distress, his longtime mentor, the revered prophet Samuel, has recently died. So Saul's without his trusted spiritual advisor right when he needs him most. But even more critically, his relationship with God is, it's deeply fractured, damaged by repeated acts of disobedience over time.
So he's isolated relationally and spiritually.
Completely. The narrative paints a really clear picture of his emotional state. It tells us in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 5, when Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid and his heart trembled greatly. You can feel the terror there. This is a leader paralyzed by profound fear, just teetering on the brink.
And it gets worse, doesn't it? Because he tries to seek guidance.
He does. But as the story explains, when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim, that ancient priestly method of divine inquiry, or by the prophets. That's 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 6. This silence from God is truly profound. It's a direct, almost deafening consequence of his past actions.
Right. It really underscores how consistently ignoring prior guidance can lead to a complete lack of wisdom precisely when you need it most.
It's a sobering lesson for any leader, absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack this moment of just absolute desperation. What makes Saul's next move so utterly shocking, I think, is that he, as a leader, had previously taken such a strong, you could say, admirable stance against these occult practices. The story specifically notes he had removed all mediums and spiritists from Israel.
That was a key leadership decision he made earlier, aligning with God's law.
Exactly, drawing a firm line. But now, under this extreme pressure, facing this existential threat and experiencing God's profound, terrifying silence, Saul decides to cross the very line he himself drew. He gives this stark command: "Seek out for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servants, they quickly reply, "Behold, there is a medium at Endor." That's all in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 7.
And so the king resolves to do the unthinkable.
Imagine him. Saul disguises himself, cloaked, hooded, probably slinking off to Endor under the cover of darkness.
Why the disguise? It's obvious, right?
He knows it's wrong. Deep down, he knows.
He's violating not just divine counsel, but his own conscience and his own public decree. It's a striking act of, self-betrayal.
And here's where it gets truly fascinating, and maybe profoundly human in a sad way. This act of disguise, seeking forbidden counsel, it isn't just a misstep. It's a vivid illustration of how raw fear and desperation can utterly corrupt a leader's judgment. As one commentary on this episode insightfully notes, this is what fear does to people. It causes them to do things they know are wrong. They feel trapped.
Exactly. Trapped, making irrational decisions. This speaks directly to that compromise of values under pressure, a scenario many leaders face, maybe not with literal mediums, but the dynamic is similar.
Sure. The temptation to cut corners or bend the rules when things get tough.
Precisely. And the interaction with the medium is equally telling. She's initially wary, and you can't blame her. She references Saul's own law against mediums in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 9. Surely you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums. Why then are you laying a trap for my life?
She's afraid he's setting her up.
Right. And then the grim, almost absurd irony kicks in. Saul swears an oath. In 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 10, he says, "As the Lord lives, to protect her."
Wait, he swears by God's name.
He does. To protect her for an act that God explicitly forbids. It just showcases this profound spiritual confusion. He's a leader so desperate he weaponizes the sacred to sanction the profane.
Wow.
And when the medium then asks, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" That's verse 11. Saul's reply reveals the deep ache in his heart. The truth he'd previously cast aside. He says, "Bring up Samuel for me," also verse 11.
He wants that trusted voice back, the very guidance he'd ignored for so long.
He's desperate for it now.
So what unfolds next is truly one of the most unsettling moments in this whole narrative. A scene that has, captivated and cautioned leaders for millennia. To the medium's utter shock, the spirit of Samuel actually appears.
Yeah, the story strongly suggests this wasn't her doing. It was an extraordinary act of divine intervention, not some routine seance.
Right. The medium herself cries out in surprise. It indicates an event far beyond her expectations or control. She then realizes her client is Saul, the king who outlawed her practice, and she trembles in fear. But Saul, he's just desperate for answers. He presses her, asking, "What do you see?" as recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 13.
And she describes an old man in a robe. Saul immediately knows. He recognizes the description of his former mentor. It's Samuel.
And the king bows with his face to the ground, a poignant mix of reverence and probably sheer terror.
Definitely terror. And this raises a really important question. Why did Samuel appear in such a dramatic, unprecedented way? The text strongly suggests it was an act of God, not the medium's power, specifically to deliver a final, devastating message to Saul.
No comfort coming here.
None at all. Samuel's first words are incredibly blunt, recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 15. "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" No pleasantries, just accusation.
And Saul just pours out his distress in response, doesn't he?
He does. As we read in that same verse, 1 Samuel 28.15, "The Philistines are at war with me. God won't answer me, so I have called you, that you may reveal to me what I should do." He lays it all out.
But Samuel's reply just cuts right to the heart of the matter.
Right to the bone. Directly from 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 16 through 18. "Why do you ask me, since the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done to you as he spoke by me. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, David. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day."
Oof. It all comes back to obedience. Or lack thereof.
Exactly. The profound implication here is that Saul's own persistent disobedience, particularly regarding God's commands earlier, like that specific command about the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15, which Saul famously disobeyed.
Right. He spared the king and the best livestock.
Revealing his deeper struggle with full obedience, that disobedience led to this ultimate judgment. His kingship was already forfeited. God's silence was part of that judgment, and now Samuel, even from beyond the grave, can only confirm it.
There's no going back at this point.
No. And then Samuel delivers the final crushing blow from 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 19. "Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me."
Tomorrow, defeat and death for him and his sons.
Imminent. Utterly devastating. Saul's reaction, documented in 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 20, is visceral. Immediately, Saul fell full length on the ground and was dreadfully afraid because of the words of Samuel. It's physically, spiritually, emotionally just shattered.
And the story bears it out. The very next day, Israel is defeated.
His sons are slain, and Saul falls on his own sword in despair. That's recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 2 through 4. The gravity of this entire episode, this consultation, is really hammered home with a powerful postscript later in the Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 10, verses 13 through 14 says, "So Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He failed to obey the Lord's command, and he even consulted a medium instead of asking the Lord for guidance. So the Lord killed him and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse."
Wow. That consultation is presented as the ultimate breach, sealing his fate. What an intense, sobering narrative. So, okay, what does this all mean for us today? Saul's dramatic story, though ancient, offers us these crucial, maybe uncomfortable lessons for leadership and even just for our everyday lives. His downfall wasn't just one catastrophic event, right? It was a culmination of choices.
Absolutely. It's a process, a trajectory.
So let's dive into some of these key takeaways. Lesson number 1, don't let fear drive you to compromise, especially by reverting to rejected measures. Saul's fear of the Philistine army, that looming threat, it led him to do something he knew was fundamentally wrong, something he himself had outlawed.
It's not just any compromise, is it? It's specifically reverting to desperate measures he'd already rejected.
Exactly. That's the key nuance here. Fear doesn't just lead to any compromise, but specifically to reverting to those previously rejected, desperate measures, even ones we ourselves outlawed. It's a stark reminder that in crisis, even our own past convictions can suddenly feel, well, distant.
That's a crucial distinction. And for today's leaders, the wisdom in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 25 warns us. Fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. Wise leaders recognize fear, sure, but they don't let it dictate their actions or compromise their core principles. The real lesson might be about recognizing those specific triggers that make us abandon our own rules and maybe having an accountability system in place before the pressure hits.
That's good. That leads right into lesson number 2. Seek guidance the right way in the right time with persistence. Saul only really sought God when he was in utter crisis, right? After persistently ignoring clear guidance in calmer earlier times, and when God seemed silent, he impatiently turned to a forbidden, dangerous option.
He didn't wait, he forced it.
But let's press on that for a moment. Isn't it true that many modern leaders facing immense pressure and maybe perceived silence from, say, the market or their board might feel that any counsel, even unconventional, is better than inaction? How do we differentiate between desperate improvisation and genuinely seeking new, perhaps innovative solutions when traditional paths seem blocked? When is it pushing for outside-the-box ideas, and when is it just a dangerous leap like Saul's?
That's a brilliant question, and it really gets to the heart of the tension. The distinction often comes down to two things, I think: consistency and alignment with core values. Genuine innovation usually builds on a foundation of principles, even if it challenges existing methods. Saul's outside-the-box solution wasn't innovative, it was a retreat from his own established principles, a violation.
Yeah, okay, so it's about what you're violating.
Right. When facing silence, resist forcing a solution that contradicts what you fundamentally believe, your core ethics, your established mission. Often the guidance needed has already been given, maybe it was ignored or forgotten. The wisdom you need might be right there in front of you from past advice, established values, or the experience of your trusted team. It's about a patient, consistent search within those boundaries, not abandoning them in panic.
That makes sense. Which leads us right to lesson number 3. Obedience and integrity above quick fixes. You can't attain a righteous end by unrighteous means. Saul knew God's will. I mean, he himself had outlawed mediums, yet he chose a quick fix that violated it. The story makes it unequivocally clear. No short-term fix is worth long-term ruin. Trying to force God's hand, or maybe just force an outcome by disobeying fundamental principles, is a strategy doomed to fail. We see that tragically here.
Yeah, and I think we've all seen versions of this, maybe in business or politics, where the pressure for immediate results leads to ethical shortcuts.
Definitely. A leader might think, I just need to get through this quarter or this election cycle and compromise on a principle they usually uphold. But as Saul's story shows so starkly, those quick fixes rarely stay contained. They tend to unravel everything eventually.
They have a corrosive effect. Which brings us to lesson number 4. Humility in leadership. Admit mistakes and return to the right path. One of Saul's greatest ongoing failures was his stubbornness, his pride. Even when confronted with his wrongs earlier in his reign, he often deflected, made excuses, or just persisted on his own path.
He doubled down instead of humbling himself.
Exactly. And you compare this to David, who, when he sinned grievously, humbled himself, saying, I have sinned against the Lord. That's found in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 13. Great leaders aren't those who never fail, because we all do, but those who own their failures, seek counsel, listen to correction, and realign with what is right. They're willing to change course.
You mentioned balancing humility with confidence earlier. This really speaks to that.
It does. A truly humble leader isn't weak. They're actually confident enough to admit when they don't have all the answers, confident enough to seek diverse perspectives, and confident enough to correct their course when they're wrong. That actually inspires deeper trust in the long run than some kind of unyielding facade.
Absolutely. Cultivating that humility, that willingness to self-correct is so crucial, not just for personal growth, but for creating a culture where learning from mistakes is actually valued rather than hidden or punished. And that ties right into lesson number 5. Understand the wider impact of your choices. Your private decisions have public consequences. Saul's personal lapse, his trip to Endor, it didn't just affect him. It cost his innocent sons their lives, including the noble Jonathan, and it led directly to Israel's crushing defeat. His choices had devastating public consequences, rippling far beyond his own immediate actions. That's such a critical insight for leaders in any field, whether you're leading a small team, a huge company, a nonprofit, a community group, even a family. Your private choices, especially those concerning integrity, often have very public consequences. They impact entire organizations, communities, families. It really calls for a sober sense of responsibility. Acting with integrity and thinking good, sound counsel isn't just for your own sake, it's for the sake of all those depending on you, those whose destinies are in some part tied to yours. The stakes are always higher for those in leadership.
That's a heavy but necessary reminder.
And finally, perhaps underpinning all of this is lesson number 6. Trust in God over your own understanding. Rely on principles, not panic. At its absolute core, Saul's downfall was a result of trusting himself, his own understanding, his own disparate schemes, rather than truly trusting God and his ways. The Bible counsels us in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Saul leaned hard on his own, very flawed understanding. He pursued forbidden counsel out of panic, and it literally led to his ruin.
So for leaders today, what does trusting over your own understanding look like practically? Especially maybe for someone not necessarily approaching it from a specific religious perspective. How do we apply that core wisdom beyond its original context?
That's a great question. I think it's about trusting proven principles and core ethical values, rather than just rashly improvising out of fear or panic. It means recognizing that you don't have all the answers, and that there are timeless truths and established wisdom, whether you find them in ethical frameworks, organizational best practices, historical lessons, or from wise mentors that should guide your decisions, even when your gut is screaming for a quick, unconventional, maybe slightly dodgy fix.
So it's about being grounded in a framework that transcends the immediate crisis.
Exactly. Saul's mistake wasn't just who he asked, the medium, but how he approached the problem driven by self-reliant fear, rather than by the established principles he himself once championed. He abandoned his anchor when the storm hit.
Wow. This deep dive into King Saul's story really offers a powerful reflection on how fear, compromise, and a lack of integrity can lead a leader, anyone really, down a truly tragic path. It's such a stark reminder that the principles we live by, especially when we're under pressure, they shape not only our own destiny, but the destiny of those we lead and influence, even in our everyday lives.
Indeed. The choices we make when we're facing the unknown, facing that silence perhaps, and our willingness to uphold our core values and seek true wisdom, that's what defines our leadership, defines our character. So maybe here's a provocative thought to leave you with for your own life or leadership. In moments of overwhelming fear or that perceived silence, what forbidden counsel? Maybe it's a tempting shortcut, an ethically gray area, advice from a source you know deep down isn't trustworthy. Might you be tempted to seek? And crucially, what prior guidance, perhaps from wise mentors, established proven principles, or even God's word, if that's your framework, might you be overlooking right now in the heat of the moment?
That is definitely something to chew on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into biblical perspectives for leadership. We really hope this exploration has offered you some valuable insights for your own journey, whether you're navigating complex decisions at work, in your community, or simply trying to live with greater integrity in your daily life.
Thank you for joining us on the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast. I hope today's insights have encouraged and equipped you to lead with faith, wisdom, and purpose. Remember, the greatest leader of all time taught us that true leadership is about serving others. If you enjoyed this episode and podcast, be sure to subscribe, share it with others, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people with these transformative truths. Until next time, keep leading with grace and walking in purpose.